Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Paddle Pod, your weekly podcast covering professional paddle, presented by Hugo and Gons. We're on to episode 101, and as always, joined by my co-host Hugo here today. Hugo, it's great to have you on. How you doing?
I'm very well, thanks, Gons. Particularly happy after our win last night. So for all our fans following Gons and my paddle endeavours as a pair, we started another tournament yesterday afternoon and we managed to beat a pair that had previously beaten us. So I think that's also a sign of progress and how we've improved. And yeah, it was one of those tough matches that just kind of momentum kept swinging from one team to another. We won the first set 6-3. Then I'm almost a bit ashamed to say it, but we got spanked in the second set 6-love. And in the third set, we managed to win 6-4. So all in all, very happy. I think that 6-love was a bit of I don't think it really reflected how the set went. There were a couple of golden points and everything just kind of went their way. But yeah, just very happy we got the win and on to the next round, which is on Tuesday and potentially our last federated match until September because there's a bit of a break in the calendar. And August is basically a write-off in Spain. So yeah, just still riding that wave. I don't know about you, Gons.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I thought, last night I was super excited. Took a while for me to get to sleep, but really enjoyed the match. It was one of those where we really had to grind it out. As you said, though, the second set didn't really reflect the actual kind of level and parity of the match. It's just sometimes when you're playing with golden points, it's so easy to, just get behind the score and any, you have a couple breaks here and there and all of a sudden it seems like it's a massive blowout. But I mean, they did raise their level definitely in the second set. They definitely raised their level. They were missing a lot less as they were in the first set, but still it was like a lot closer than it seemed, and that kind of reflected on into the third set where I thought we started strong and we also got a couple of key golden points in that third set which we didn't in the second set. So pretty big win, also quite an important tournament, and yeah, as you said, moving on to the next round, which is nice as always. So yeah, very excited to keep going, obviously.
Agreed. And even though I'm sure our fans do enjoy hearing about our matches every now and then and how we're doing on court, it's probably better that we move on to the actual pro stuff. Definitely more interesting for most people. Maybe not for us, but I'd say for about 99.9% of the population.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, who knows? Maybe one day we could start like being, kind of paddle influencers or something, and people actually be interesting to see our in the Madrid Federated Tour and League. So who knows? Maybe one day it will become interesting, but I don't think today is that day. At least not yet. But anyways, moving on, as you were mentioning, obviously we just had Bordeaux P2, the French tournament, and I mean, oh god, so good to have paddle back indoors. I mean, I missed it. I thought the level was really good. I mean, we had some really intense matches, some epic, like really long matches as well, which I think kind of reflects how when you play indoors, sometimes the conditions are much slower. The points, take longer to construct, they take longer to finish, and so you sometimes see these longer matches as opposed to the very fast outdoor court conditions. So I mean, it was great to see. I just love how it becomes so tactical. Points are constructed a lot better. I feel like it's less rush, and it just seems like after every single ball has some sort of intention rather than just like anytime a lob goes up, you just go and smash. So I don't know how you felt about it, Hugo. Were you like kind of happy to see paddle back indoor? Did you like the level overall?
I think it's basically confirmed that I much prefer indoor paddle and everything that comes with it, just because it generally means that courts are significantly slower, and I just prefer that paddle. It's probably a personal opinion. I'm sure a lot of people will agree, others will disagree. But yeah, I think the ultra aggressive and fast outdoor courts and tournaments that have happened this year, I just don't find that enjoyable. I don't mind having one every now and then, because it can also cause a few surprises. But yeah, I mean, I just think, as you said, the level, the actual gameplay is more enjoyable. You actually see a lot more tactics involved. At least that's my own opinion. And I don't know, just thinking about that final, those cross court battles that were Chingotto and Coello, maybe 20, 30, 40 shot long rallies. just make it much more enjoyable as a spectator. So yeah, I'd definitely agree with you. I think the level was really, really high. I think this final specifically was probably one of the most even finals we've watched all season. I know it was a 2-set match, but when you actually look at the gameplay and how the games went and how many breaks of serve there were, and well, obviously the first tiebreak went on to be won by Coello Tapia. So I think that just shows how equal everything was. Also, that quarterfinals encounter between Momo and Jon and Coello Tapia that again could have gone either way. So I thought it was a lot of very even matches with a lot of changes in momentum, much like our own match that we described yesterday. And I think that's what made Bordeaux chuck it in the top 3 tournaments of the season.
I mean, there were. I think one of my favorite matches of the year was definitely that Momo Jon against Tapia. I mean, I thought that was an absolutely insane match, and I thought the level was super high. But maybe before going into that one, I think that maybe we can step in and kind of dive a bit deeper into the final, because you were mentioning it, which I think it's interesting. It's definitely, I agree with you that it seemed to me that it was kind of one of the most equal matches that we've seen from them. Even though, for example, in the Rome final where Chingotto and Galan beat Coello Tapia, if I'm not mistaken, it was 2 sets and it was like 7-5, 6-3. That might seem also quite like, equal. But in that match, I just felt like Chingotto and Galan were kind of like raised their level a lot, and they were definitely a lot more superior, a lot more in control. Whereas I felt like in this one, there were moments that I thought both pairs had, like they were, kind of having the upper hand. And it just felt like very equal throughout. Also, the tiebreak I thought was super interesting because there was a combination of when it started to get to that point where each kind of pair were having set points. It was super interesting because it seemed like one point they would do really well, then the next point they would do like a weird unforced error, and then the other pair would then do a point really well, but then the other pair would have the set point and then do a really weird unforced error. And it just kind of kept going back and forth like that until eventually Coello and Tapia managed to pull it off. But yeah, it was interesting. I will say that even though it was equal, like the level, I did feel like it wasn't like super high. I'm not sure if you agree. I felt like we saw a lot of unforced errors that normally we wouldn't see. Like, for example, I thought on Chingalan's side, I thought that Galan had maybe a bit more unforced errors than kind of what we see, especially this tournament, because I think that the run up to the final, I thought Galan was like absolutely sensational. Like, I thought from a smashing perspective, I don't think I saw him miss a single smash. And then in the final, he actually did miss like a couple of them. I thought Tapia as well, waves of playing well and then maybe playing not so well. But to me, the one that probably stood out the most was Coello. And yeah, I mean, it was a very tight final. I do feel like sometimes maybe Chingalan are probably scratching their heads because throughout a lot of the match, I thought that they were, quite in control. They managed to ride that early wave where Coello and Tapia definitely started off super strong, I felt, and then they managed to, ride that wave off. They did lose the tie break, obviously, in the first set, but then they would break up in the second set. So yeah, I thought that definitely was a final where both of them could have had it, but still Coello and Tapia prevail. And I mean, massive from them. It feels like, I don't know if you felt it, but this tournament, it just felt like I don't think that they've been playing necessarily their best, but they're still winning, which I think speaks volumes because they're probably at that level where mentally they're just so in front and so ahead of everyone else that they don't necessarily have to play their best and they still manage to get the results.
Definitely. I mean, I think going or addressing your point about the level, are you talking specifically about the level of the final, maybe not being that
Yeah.
okay, the final? I mean, honestly, I'd say elements of it, yes. And then there were elements where I thought it was one of the best finals of all season. I mean, honestly, Galan smashing, I know he made a couple of mistakes, but he generated so many winners that I thought it was one of his, I mean, maybe not one of his best smashing performances, because obviously when you're in outdoor court conditions, we've seen him just go for 50 smashes in a match. But I think he was super proficient with his smashing. I would, however, agree with your analysis of Tapia's smashing. I think throughout the whole week, he was constantly getting found out. He wouldn't go for a smash in a lot of the key moments when we expect him to go for it. And actually, when he did, he made a lot of mistakes. Even with his bandeja, I thought in the final specifically, he made a lot of mistakes where he was leaving his bandeja short and putting it into the net. So I would agree with that. But yeah, I don't know. When I think about the final, I think of it as a really high level match. Not that either pair threw it away. It was more that they were having to go for, well, high risk, high reward shots because both pairs were defending so well. I mean, the fact that it was quite a slow court meant that you could see even Coello. I thought his defensive performance in the final was unbelievable. From the back, really dealing really well with Chingotto's Víbora and Bandeja, which is not traditionally his forte. And I do definitely agree with you. I think Coello was the MVP. I thought it was differential. And in that key game that gave them the set in the second set when Chingalan was serving to stay in the match, I mean, Coello was just going for all the points in the sense that he was going for the high risk, high reward action, whether that was volley play or going for a really tight lob and getting up tight to the net. Also in that tiebreak of the first set, when they were 5-3 down, Chingalan serving to be 6-3 up, and Coello goes for that unbelievable bajada where he absolutely steams the ball, and Chingotto looks at him being like, I mean, what have you just done?
I saw Chingotto's face and he was like, fair play.
Yeah. So I would say that Coello in particular was surreal. Probably one of the best finals that we've watched him play from how dominant he was. And actually you saw Chingalan trying to play a lot of lobs to Tapia and actually trying to kind of make Tapia play a lot of the volume, which traditionally has been the other way around. So I was quite surprised about that. I do think that it worked quite well for Chingalan throughout the match. But I just think, as you said, during those key points, during that first tie break, and even during the second set when Coello and Tapia were 4-2 down, let's not forget they ended up breaking Chingalan's serve twice to win that second set 6-4. I think that mentally they were just made out of stone. I mean, they were sensational, and they really demonstrated that throughout the whole week, because in that quarterfinal match against Momo and Jon, they could have easily been out. I mean, they were a breakdown in the third set as well. Can't remember what the score was.
They faced match points as well against. They got they saved a couple of match points. So.
Agreed. So I think your point about them maybe not playing their best paddle, but just being so superior from a mental standpoint and believing that the point isn't lost, the match isn't lost until, well, there's that saying in football, until the final whistle. They really kind of lived by that. And I mean, they saved match points against Momo and Jon, and this final against Chingalan, they were really under they didn't have the upper hand for a lot of moments, as you said, and they managed to turn that round. So unbelievable win for them. They remain at the top of the race, which is actually really tight. So it's a very important win. It was only a P2, so I guess from a points perspective, it's not that disastrous for Chingalan. But I think it's a massive win from a mental standpoint, because after Chingalan beat them in the last tournament, it wasn't the last tournament, it was the one before, obviously, because then Chingalan lost to Stupa and Lebron, but their previous encounter had been won by Chingalan almost a year after their previous win. Not winning the next one must be a big hit for Chingalan. I don't know whether you agree.
Yeah, to be honest, I think both pairs should kind of feel happy about their performance. I think on the one side with Coello and Tapia, like we were just mentioning it, maybe it's not the best level that they've played out this whole week, where they've kind of always been in the back foot, but at the same time, they managed to get the results. So in a way, they should be happy, because it's like, we still can give 2 or 3 levels, we can play 2-3 levels above, and we still manage to win, right? So I mean, that's obviously huge for them, and confidence wise going forward, that they're like that strong mentally and they're still able to get the results even though they're not necessarily playing their best. And I think from Chingalan, in a way, it's like similar, because I think these last 2 finals, obviously Rome, they were quite dominant. And this one, they've been super close, and they were throughout moments of the match on top, and they were also dominant. So they should probably feel quite happy about how they're like kind of stepping up their matchup to Coello and Tapia, that, before Rome was almost seemed like, what are they, are they going to split, and all these issues, because the matchups were just so lopsided. So it feels like they've raised their level. And like I mentioned, I also felt like at moments Chingalan, they didn't play. Like, I still feel like Chingalan can give a couple of levels more in certain moments. I saw Galan kind of miss some or have some unforced errors that, maybe you normally wouldn't see. Or, for example, compared to the semi-final that he played against Tello and Nenno, where he was like absolutely unplayable and didn't miss a single shot. And I don't know how many smashes he won. So I still feel like they inside they should feel confident in terms of like, we really brought the battle, and we probably could also play, in a couple of moments here and there a bit better. So that also should give them a lot of confidence heading into, probably the most important part of the season, because if I'm not mistaken, we have like Malaga P1, we have the Tarragona P1, then we have the summer break, but then we've got Madrid P1, and then the French majors. So it's a massive tournaments here that will probably shape up, how the end of the year goes. And we know, for example, how last year Coello and Tapia after the summer were so dominant, and they were playing incredible levels. So it's going to be super, super interesting. I thought both pairs should be kind of happy with their performances overall.
Yeah, no, maybe one final point. I do agree that they should both be happy because they made the final once again. They overcame adversities. I mean, Chingalan were unlucky in the sense that Coello Tapia actually didn't have to play the semi-final because of Paquito's injury. So I'm sure that helped because they were absolutely knackered after Momo and Jon's match. So I do think there's positives for both pairs, obviously more for Coello Tapia just because they won. But I think the fact that that Chingalan didn't manage to beat them for a second consecutive time after their first win in so long, and the fact that the court was actually very much suited to Chingotto and Galan's kind of preferred court conditions, that must be a bit of a hit, I think. Particularly given how even the match was, the fact that they were almost there. They obviously had set points in the first set, didn't take advantage of them. They were a break up in the second one. I don't know. I think it could cast a few doubts in their minds, but overall, I'd say obviously they've got to be happy. They made another final and they lost the best player in the world. I mean, can't really complain too much about that.
Exactly, 100%. But maybe moving on, I thought that actually, should we talk about, given that kind of we're in Chingotto and Galan, should we maybe talk about one of the pieces of kind of controversy that
Yes.
that came around this tournament? So this was in the semi-final of Chingotto and Galan against Tello and Nenno, that I thought was also like, that was a super high level match, I thought. And one of the moments, I can't remember exactly, was it in the tie break?
In the tie break.
Yes.
It was 5-3 to Tello di Nenno, and it would have been 6-3 to Tello di Nenno, but it ended up being 5-4 to Chingalan.
Yeah, so that moment, there was a scene where basically the ball falls to the Nenno, to kind of like quite an easy ball. He's like right close to the net, and Galan is there like right in front of him, and the Nenno's kind of like, he was about to volley it, or like, chancletazo, like it was a really easy ball to just put away, and he had a lot of the court, but Galan was literally right in front, and Galan just sticks his racket out, and the ball, the Nenno then manages, when he's placing it, it manages to hit Galan's racket, and the ball just kind of falls back, and the Nenno's out of place, Tello's out of place, and then, as you said, that made it 5-4, and Chingalan won that point, and then they ended up winning the tiebreak, of course, and the match eventually. So I think one of the key kind of controversy moments, because we've seen actions like this in the past where potentially players are trying to block very close to the opposition, and it just kind of feels a bit dangerous, in the sense that obviously if you stick your hand out and your racket out to block when a player is about to return a smash or volley hard or something, there could obviously be clashes there, and there could be some real damage done. And I think we just kind of wanted to discuss and have your views. I think if I may start, Hugo, I kind of want to give two different thoughts. I think first and foremost, like looking at the play and looking at it slowly and kind of rewatching it, I would say that from a like pure textbook legal point of view, it does seem like it was a fair, and the decision was correct, in the sense that legally Galan is just sticking out his racket and he's not going into the other opposition side. So he's still in his own side and he's just putting his racket out. So it would seem like, hey, the ball touched and everything. So it would seem fair. Now, I think we probably have to go a step forward and kind of assess the whole situation and think about, the fact that maybe Nenno, because he sees that action, is thinking like, well, I'm not going to blast this ball now at like, 200 kilometers an hour and I'm just going to like place it slightly. So in a way, it is a very, very dangerous action. We've seen players before, like Yang Was does it quite a bit. And I do think that sort of play probably needs to be a bit regulated. Not exactly sure how you would do it, but it does feel very dangerous that when you're blocking up so close that and the player has the chance to put a ball like really easily away, that in hindsight, the player probably doesn't, they react like, okay, I'm not going to blast this ball now because, his hand's right there and, we could both hit like each other and, there can be some real damage done. So I do think that it needs to be regulated. But if you look at how the textbook kind of like is done now, it does seem like it was a correct decision, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I think that the issue is that the current textbook definition is a bit unclear, because I think it says something about enabling the other player to perform a shot at his full range of motion. And I don't know whether the Nenno had a full range of motion in that shot. It's obvious that Galan doesn't invade their side of the court. That was the first element of discussion. That's obvious. But whether the Nenno couldn't play the shot that he was going to play because of Galan putting his racket there, I have a bit more of a doubt. Personally, I think that they should have probably just replayed the point, because it was an essential it was a key point. I mean, it went from being 6-3 to Tello di Nenno, 3 set points, to 5-4 to Tello di Nenno, but 2 Chingalan serves, and they ended up winning that set and the match. So I just think, given that it's a bit of a grey area, given that the definition isn't that clear, and given that, like, for example, when players just call a serve that was out, they say in, I'll give you another first serve. They could just say, hey, guys, let's just be honest. Let's just replay the point. I don't know whether the Nenno Tello would have been very happy about it. I don't know. Maybe Galan wouldn't have been very happy about it either, because he'd actually won the point. But I think that would have been the fairest thing. Now, I do think they have to regulate it. And personally, even though I understand the referee's decision based on, as you say, the current textbook rules, I think that action shouldn't be allowed. I think that what they should say is that if that, it normally happens after smashes, right? Because it had been Tello smashing, Galan getting up high and managing to just touch the ball, and then the Nenno trying to obviously close the point and Galan still being in that position. I think what they should say is that if the player can't have a full swing at the ball, then the other, well, that team or that pair gets the point automatically given to them. So the other player has to be, I don't know what that would be. Would that be a meter behind the net? Maybe it would be. And then they would just analyze each action individually. I think that what that would do is just prevent players being so close and so tight up to the net, because currently it's a problem. As you said, Yangwas has done it a lot. That's caused controversy. And more than that, it's just seriously dangerous. I mean, if the Nenno didn't care at all about Galan's integrity, he could have just gone for an absolute spanking of the ball, and he could have taken Galan's arm out. And then what happens when you break the other player's hand? I mean, that's a serious problem. So I think, personally, I don't know whether you agree, but I would say you've got to give the other player full range of motion. And if you see in the replay, because the player's too close to the net, that he doesn't have it, then you automatically give the Nenno. In this case, you would have given the Nenno and Tello the point.
Yeah, no, I think something like that definitely needs to be on the cards, because it's not the first time that we've seen it and probably won't be the last time, right? And it's obviously a super dangerous play where thankfully nothing's happened so far in, regarding to this type of play or any injuries come out of it. But you do feel like sometimes players are definitely like the ones that, have the ball to put away, they're definitely backing off a bit, which is obviously as well something that you don't want, right? Like, you as a player want to have the ability to, depending on the ball, do what you want with it. And if you're having to kind of back away your shot because like you see that someone else is sticking their arm out and you don't want to break their arm, then that obviously kind of hinders your ability and your decision making. So it should definitely be taken a look at.
But and obviously I think we've shared our thoughts, so we could probably move on. But I do think that everyone having a go at Galan, saying that it's him again and he shouldn't do that, and even Tello, I don't know whether you saw this, but Tello was saying,
No.
these things always happen with you, or something like that. I personally don't agree with that. Even though I think that that action shouldn't be allowed, I just think Galan is doing what 90% of the players do in those situations or have done, or yeah, I'd say most of the players have done that at some point.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah,
And I think another element of it is, as you were mentioning earlier, because of the play, Galan was there. It wasn't like kind of Galan looked for it and he saw that Nenno was going to, to smash and he just like jumped and like went in front of him to try and block it. It was literally Galan as a result of the play action. He was right there. And as soon as you see Nenno trying to go for it, you just stick your hand out like potentially he's going to hit you. And so I definitely didn't feel like he wanted some sort of intentional, like there's a reason intentionally behind of thinking like, oh, if I stick my hand out, he's not going to go for it. I definitely don't think that like anything like that is going on. It's just the natural reaction. You're right there and you see it and you're like, okay, well, let me try and block it. Um, in that sense, I definitely don't think that there was like an intention.
agreed, agreed.
So maybe something and another pair that we definitely wanted to discuss was Paquito and Bergamini. Another great tournament, just so unfortunate that at the end they had to pull out of the semifinals because Paquito's back injury, which seemed like he was carrying on from the quarterfinal match against Koki and Yanguas. That as well, even though it was a 6-4, 6-4, lasted like over 2 hours, which is absolutely insane. I think this just shows you the level of play that there was and kind of the struggle I'm sure that it was physically. And towards the end of that match, I mean, you can see, but like all players kind of like found it. I felt like the speed of the match changed so much. Like towards the end, the players were barely moving, and even after Paquito and Berga won, you saw Paquito was like, touching his back quite a bit. So obviously he had to pull out of the tournament. But I mean, another sensational tournament from them, and maybe they're like a pair that we haven't talked about much, but they've been quietly doing their work.
Agreed. I mean, firstly, I'd like to say that if my calculations are correct, they are now sitting fourth in this year's race. So just behind the three big dogs, Coello Tapia, Chingalan, and Stupa Lebron. And let's take into account that Stupa Lebron played that tournament and won the tournament that some of the other players and pairs weren't playing. So that's something we should take into account as well. Yeah, amazing. They've just overtaken Koki and Yanguas in the race. They're ahead of Momo and Jon, for example, ahead of Augsburger Cardona, who a lot of us or a lot of people probably think could maybe have more points than Paquito and Berga. So really impressive. I think obviously the fact that it was slower, well, it was a slower court and slower court conditions really helped them because Paquito just loves playing paddle walking. I mean, it sounds maybe a bit too much, but when you watch that match against Koki and Yanguas, he was so comfortable to just have that cross-court battle with Koki or even with Yanguas in that kind of parallel battle and just kind of put the pressure on the other player, just play a lob and again and again and again, and just very slowly transition to the net without having to rush. I mean, he's such a dangerous player on slower and even medium paced courts because obviously he's getting older and he doesn't have the attacking prowess and maybe speed that he did before. But defensively, he's, I'd say, as good as he's ever been, really. So yeah.
You can feel like in matches that he's the one dictating how the match wants, like he's dictating how he wants the match to be played. Like I think you very, very rarely see players dictating the speed and controlling the match towards like to what they want when Paquito's on court. And this is something that Ovide actually talked about in an interview once where he was saying that with Paquito, the thing that's amazing is how he's the one that's able to kind of take control of the match. And if he wants it for it to be a slow match and he's going to play, 10 lobs after each bandeja in the exact same spot, he will. And if he wants to take it a bit short, he will. So it's absolutely amazing. As you said, that cross-court battle. I mean, how many times was Koki having to do a bandeja and Paquito was just sitting there, letting the ball go from the back glass to the side glass and then play a lob and play the exact same lob for about 10 times. Like, it's just absolutely amazing that he's still able to manage things like that with the age that he has, and definitely still some of the kind of one of the top backhand players. And as you say, especially in slow court conditions. And Bergamini as well, I think that the level he's been showing lately is absolutely sensational. I mean, I would put him up there in terms of the top kind of right side drive players. I mean, I would potentially say that I don't think it's a bold statement, but I would put him even ahead of someone like the Nenno, who, a couple of years ago, you'd be like, what the hell is this guy smoking? But he's been playing absolutely amazing, I feel.
Definitely. I mean, I think from an unforced error count perspective and percentages in that realm, he could actually be the most reliable player on tour. Full stop. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, he's
even more than Chingotto,
absolutely.
because Chingotto now is, I think we're seeing a little bit, a little bit more aggressive version of Chingotto,
Yeah.
and he's maybe making a few mistakes on returns of serve. He's going for a few smashes. Just generally, I think it's because he's having to spice things up. He's having a few more unforced errors, and Bergamini just doesn't make a mistake. So I think Paquito's found kind of the perfect partner in that sense, and he can just play completely freely, take risks when he wants to, and when he does, it really does pay off most of the time. So very impressive tournament from them once again. They beat Koki and Yanguas, who had beaten Leal and Guerrero, obviously one of the most informed pairs on tour, 6-love, 6-love in the previous round. I can't remember the last match, that kind of Premier Padel match involving a relatively well-known pair, even less known pairs, that ended 6-love, 6-love. So I really thought this could be kind of redemption week for Gogi and Yanguas, who have traditionally been really good as well on slower courts, particularly Gogi, who can just run for days. But yeah, Paquito Berga beat them in straight sets. I know it was a very even match, but hey, 6-4, 6-4 shows dominance. Yeah, credit where credit's due. Paquito Berga, I've got to be honest, I really did not think that they would be sitting fourth in the race at this stage of the season. I did not expect such good results from the pair. I thought they were going to be consistent. I thought they were going to be definitely amongst the top 8 pairs who were going to play the Master Finals at the end of the year. But I really didn't think they were going to be that far up, to be honest.
No, it's absolutely amazing what they're doing, and we'll see because let's see the other pairs that that kind of have to step up to that spot. I think how we've spoken about recently, it seems like Koki and Yanguas, there's a bit of issues there. They're definitely not finding their form that they had at the beginning of the season. We also spoke about Cardona and Asburder, who started off the season super well, but as of late, they're also being seems like they're struggling a bit, and Momo and Jon, who here and there are always kind of battling, but it seems like they have a kind of a bit of a mixed bag of results. But to be fair, they've also seemed to have like quite difficult draws. And maybe just to finish off, like just a quick mention maybe of Momo and Jon and that quarterfinal match, because I mean, to me, it was probably one of the most exciting matches that I've seen this season so far. I mean, the absolute highlight points from Momo, absolutely insane. And let me just say, like, I thoroughly, like, it's kind of one of those matches where it's like, I mean, they both pairs had set points, so, match points. So, either one could have really won it. And I've also would have been super happy if Momo and Jon would have won that match. But I think as a pair, like, I'm really liking Momo and Jon in the sense that Momo's smashing, I think he's improved a lot in that sense. I mean, how many smashes did we see him take that match in what is supposed to be a slow court, and that smash as well where he's jumping, I mean, it's absolutely insane. And Jon as well, what I really liked about him was that feels like he's a bit calmer in terms of his decision making. He doesn't seem as rushed. He doesn't seem to, like, when you go for super risky shots when he doesn't necessarily have them in terms of being in a position to do them well. So I think like Gavi Reka, for example, there is probably like a really good influence on him and making him play a bit smarter. So yeah, I mean, even though they did lose that match, it was an epic way to go out, and I'm liking kind of what I'm seeing from Momo and Jon. I think they make a solid partnership.
For sure. I think you can definitely see Gavi Rega's kind of, influence on the pair, particularly on Jon Sand's side, given how Gavi Rega was as a player, just very safe, very consistent, very based on percentages, and not making stupid mistakes. And you can see that from Jon. He's really upped his game, I'd say, in the last few months, because I'd say at the start of the season, he was being... he was letting me down a little bit. I think looking at
Yeah.
some of the top players, he was probably having the worst season out of the kind of top 16, 20 players based on expectations. But I think he's really turned that around. And Momo, I mean, I'd say he's the leader of that pair. I think his calmness is really helping Jon Sant as well. And honestly, on slow court conditions, he could easily be in the top 3 backhands in the world. backhand players, full stop. I mean, probably better suited than Tapia, better suited than even Stupa. It's just, he's just a machine. I mean, defensively, it's so hard to get a point off him. His smashing has been unreal, and he's just so dominant with that kind of víbora bandeja that you don't really know what it is. It's not really a bandeja, but it's not really a víbora. He's spoken about it a lot in interviews. He's kind of got that like hybrid shot, and it works so well on slow courts. So yeah, really impressed by them. I think they probably deserve to go through, to be honest. They probably played better than Coello and Tapia, but it just shows how these guys just do it again and again. And it's a shame because I think it's now 3 straight tournaments where Jon and Momo have gone out in the third set, 7-6. 3 straight tournaments. Now that must be very tough mentally. So I do wish them the best in the sense that I really hope that the next match that goes down to the line, they win. Because I don't think they played it badly. I don't think they made stupid mistakes. I think they did everything well, but it just happened to go the other way.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think they're definitely like knocking on the door, and it feels like they're very close, to being there, and I'm sure that they will get there eventually. So yeah, all the best. I mean, and as a pair, I just really like them as well. I think they're both kind of quite funny characters, each one a bit different than the other. But yeah, I mean, it's fun to see them play for sure. But yeah, I think probably this brings us to the end of the episode. As always, I hope that everyone has enjoyed it. Please do leave us your comments with your thoughts on the Bordeaux P2, and yeah, we look ahead to Malaga, which I think is starting next week. I'm not
Yes.
sure. Yeah,
It's on the
So
14th of July. We've got 2 more tournaments, which will be back to back,
yeah,
Malaga and Tarragona. And then it's the summer break, which will definitely involve a bit of a domino effect with pair changes. It always
yeah.
happens. And 2 very important tournaments for the race. And the build up towards the end of the season, because everything's very tight. I mean, when you look at the race, points are very tight. So a lot of things can change.
Yeah. And level of play, I feel like at this moment in time, it feels like it is tight. So definitely still a lot of things to be said. So yeah, with that said, I do hope that everyone's enjoyed it, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, guys. All the best.